I'm Marissa Pecos, and I'm the owner and operator of Whippoorwill Farms SC, a small family farm in the low country of South Carolina. My husband and I have been farming for just over 4 years and publicly offering our products for just over a year. My main job on the farm is to ensure our animals have an exceptional life from birth to harvest, and then honor them by using each part of them in preparing meals for our family. Another big part of my job is educating the public about where their food comes from and how to best use our products daily on their family's table. So now I invite you to enter into our tiny kitchen filled with farm flavor as we prepare meals together in our fifth wheel on our farm. Hey guys, I'm Marissa with Whippoorwill Farms, and this is my tiny kitchen. We live in a Montana fifth wheel and have been living in fifth wheels for, I guess I've been almost 7 years, and James since forever living in RVs. When he and I met, we were neighbors living in an RV park, and we fell in love, and you know how that story goes, and we decided to trade in the RVs and get this RV. And then it wasn't long after that I found out I was pregnant with Ellie. So we have had Ellie in here, this is where she came home to, and this is what we've lived in for the longest time. So when we're cooking in our RV, we have very limited space and we have really limited storage space. So everything has to be done on a small scale with no fancy appliances and trying to use like the least amount of tools. We don't have a dishwasher, so all of our dishes get washed by hand. Obviously we don't want to make a ton of dishes to wash, so we try and do as many like 1 or 2 pot meals as possible. Today we did mustard greens, which was its own pot, and then I was roasting a chicken. I started thinking about roasting the chicken in a regular roasting pan, but then I decided no, and I switched it over to the cast iron pan. I needed to brown the sweet potatoes and the onions beforehand because our chickens are on the smaller side. We don't want to overcook the chicken, and so those things needed a little extra cooking time. And so I did them on the stove in the cast iron pan, and then was able to just stick the whole cast iron pan into the oven.
First stop was the farmer's market, and my goal here was to use as much local ingredients as possible. I started with onions and sweet potatoes, which I chopped coarsely in big chunks. It's sweet potato season here in the South. I got ready to put everything into the cast iron pan, making sure to save all my scraps, either for the compost or for stock later. I added butter over medium heat and chopped up some garlic and added that in there. I browned the sweet potatoes and the onions. I cooked them until the outside was just soft and the onions were lightly cooked. Next, I went ahead and made the garlic butter that I was going to put all over the chicken while it was cooking. I am an Italian Jersey girl, and so the more garlic, the better. There's no such thing as too much garlic in my life. I added them into a little glass jar and then added butter. Stuck it in the microwave and let the butter melt for a minute. Then I stirred it up and I added some olive oil. We used organic extra virgin olive oil. There's no right or wrong way of how to make the butter. You don't have to use garlic, you could use other spices, but for us, meaning me, I really like garlic. Next, you're going to take the skin and separate it from the meat. It takes a minute, you might have to cut in some places, but just take your time and be gentle, and eventually the skin will come off. You're doing this so that you can get the butter and the garlic or whatever spices or herbs that you choose, so you can really smear it in there and stuff all that goodness up into the skin. Once I got the skin separated, I went ahead and added the butter with the garlic and the olive oil. I spread it in there pretty thickly and got it all through the legs and the thighs and over the breasts and up to the back. I decided to put the legs of the chicken back into the skin so that they stayed tight as they were cooking. So I just pierced a little bit of a hole through the skin and then added the legs through the hole and pulled them through tightly and then crossed them over each other. I went ahead and finished getting the legs situated and then got ready to put the chicken right over top of my browned sweet potatoes, onions, and I also included the chicken neck. The sweet potatoes and the onions are just cooked enough so that for the remainder of the time in the oven, they'll brown really nicely. Once I got the chicken situated how I wanted it, I added a little bit more of the butter with garlic and olive oil on top, and then also added some salt and pepper. The other thing left to do was, because we used mustard greens and we had stems left over, our goal is to use every piece of the ingredients that we're using. And so we took the stems and added them right into the center. They'll steam through the meat and give it a nice mustard flavor, and they will cook a little bit more so that I can then take those and add them straight into stock once I save the bones and the other pieces of the scraps that I was going to use to make stock. Once that's all ready to go, the oven temperature is set and I'm ready to put the chicken in. The thing to remember about cooking in an RV is that the oven never really is the temperature that it says it is. So it's super important that I have a meat thermometer and that I do pay attention to my cook times and watching my meat. Into the oven the chicken goes. I set the timer for 15 minutes, which I know is not a lot of time, but I wanted to gauge how fast the chicken was cooking. After 15 minutes, I took the meat thermometer and checked the temperature in the thigh. For poultry, your safe cooking temperature is 165. So I wanted to gauge and see exactly how fast the meat was cooking so I knew how long to leave it in again. I checked it and it was at 93 degrees. Back into the oven it goes. About another 35 to 40 minutes later, I pulled the chicken out and checked the temperature. The sweet potatoes and onions were cooked perfectly, and as I waited, I noticed that the chicken was the exact temperature that it needed to be at as well. The meal was finished. I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to cook a pasture-raised chicken from our farm today in a really simple way. You can purchase our meats weekly on Tuesdays at the Hilton Head Island Farmers Market and on Saturdays at the Forsyth Farmers Market in Savannah.